We've got some busy weather going on over parts of the country tonight. We've got snow that's going to be tapering off and ending from west to east across the plains. Severe weather in parts of the Gulf states. Rain exiting the northeast and mid Atlantic states as we set up for Friday. And we have quite a bit of severe weather to talk about in the forecast over the next 7 days. All that and more coming up on the Joe and Joe Weather Show. And what is that you see in the background? That is mulch. And we have not only mulch, but we also have topsoil and mulch of different colors. And you can find it all at Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. The telephone number there is 631 756 1125, and they're located at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, north of the Sunrise Highway, north of the Southern State Parkway, but south of the Long Island Expressway, serving the entire New York, New Jersey, Connecticut tri-state area with the lowest prices anywhere. And of course, you can always go to their website, which is
OmniTrueValue.com, Joe.
yes, exactly. So I'm noticing that we have winter sweater advisories and lizard warnings up for parts of the plains, and we have severe sweater issues in the Gulf states, and of course on this St. Patrick's Day, the green area on the map, which is the rain, is moving out of the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic states and setting up for what should be a fine finish to the week with temperatures, I don't know, depending on how much sun we get tomorrow. If it goes to work right away and we got a good launching pad, might uh, might go higher than advertised.
Well, and don't forget the sea breezes for those
Oh,
who are near to the shore
we
areas.
mustn't ever forget the sea breeze.
Yes,
Not this
the
time
beach
of year.
breeze,
Yeah,
the bleach breeze.
that's when this time of year, that's when you go from 60 or 6, your temperatures rise kind of in tandem with everybody else till about 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning on Long Island. And then south of the Sunrise Highway, the south wind comes in and you're dead. And then you spend the rest of the
Yes,
afternoon in you drop back into the 50s, and sometimes you even drop back into the 40s, which is not fun. And the same on the Jersey Shore, where the wind will bend around to the south and run parallel to the shoreline, which also brings in cooler air and knocks the temperatures down, at least right along the immediate coast. But overall, though, tomorrow is, as you said yesterday, Joe, the pick of the week.
yes. Not only the pick of the week, not only of this week, but I mean next week doesn't look all that great. If you want warm temperatures or mild temperatures, we're going to be seeing temperatures more like near or above 50 next week, I think. And it's also going to be nice with sunshine tomorrow. That'll be nice because it looks like it's going to be wet on Saturday. I think, right now, from my vantage point, Joe, Sunday starts with sun and then goes to clouds, instability clouds by midday and afternoon. So it does not look like a spectacular day on Sunday. We will get some views of the sun, but if you want to get those views, get them in early because by the afternoon, I think we're going to see a lot of bubbling clouds. And I'm not mentioning it right now in my Hudson Valley forecast, but it would not be surprising to me if we finished out the day on Sunday with a couple of showers or spritzes. So, not a great weekend outlook right now.
Yeah, I've been throwing in the mention of a passing shower on Sunday for the last couple of days now. Meanwhile, we've got more surprises from SPC, the Storm Prediction Center, as we were talking yesterday about the fact that they've only put the I'm sorry, they only put the risk area in their date 8 forecasts only 6 times since 20 in the last 10 years, and the last time they did it was in 2019. And of course, we've been marveling over the fact that uh, when it shows up in their long range, they're thinking pretty seriously about some sort of severe weather outbreak. But I saw, and I will show it today, on their day 5 forecast, and I'm not sure the last time when this happened, but they already have an enhanced risk being indicated for that area that started off at day 8. So they've already got on the day 5. Now that it's in the day 5, I think it's the day 5 or the day 6 time frame. We'll take a look at it. But you'll see there's the enhanced area is in there, which probably means that when we get to it, we'll have a moderate risk of severe weather. And this is going to be across the Gulf states next week, where there'll be where we're going to see a couple of weather systems moving on through.
Yes, yes. And, maybe it's a whole new thing. Maybe they had a memo circulated at SPC saying, from here on, we're going to be taking more and more risks and forecasts
Or maybe
beyond the
not.
third day or beyond the fourth day.
Or maybe not.
But, I don't know.
It could just be the pattern that we're in. I would like to. I would tend to think that that is the case because they don't throw around those. When they're not sure, they always put up predictability too low, which is their honest way of telling you that you know what, we're not sure yet, and and that's perfectly reasonable. And sometimes those predictability too lows wind up being slight risk or enhanced or even moderate risk down the road. So it all depends on how the atmosphere evolves. Joe Rayo's monitoring the chat board tonight. So if you have something to say on this St. Patrick's Day, by all means, say it on the chat board. I pinned a link to the top of the chat board to my community page on YouTube. So if you're interested in reading up on latest weather developments and latest weather analysis, you can go to the community page and then go hook up to my website, meteorologistjoechaffee.com, and you can read more about what's going on with the local weather in eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England. And sometimes I have other stuff that's up there. So just make a notation of that. And Paul Roman was an early super chat hit when I opened the chat board up a few hours ago. Thank you, Paul. Most generous of you. And Joe and I do appreciate you hitting super chat tonight. So, are we ready? Oh, by the way,
I'm all set.
By the way, did you have dinner yet? What was for St. Patrick's Day dinner for you?
The corned beef was not could not be made quick enough, so we're postponing that until St. Joseph's Day on Saturday. So tonight, what did we have tonight? I already forgot. It's already a blur. Oh yeah, we had pasta with tomato sauce, with tomato gravy and meatballs.
Oh,
there's your traditional and typical Irish dinner.
Well, normally I would do corned beef, and I would cook it in Guinness beer. And of course, being Italian, I have to serve it on a bed of lasagna. But unfortunately, now with my stomach condition, I can't really eat high fatty meats. So I didn't make any corned beef today. So I know it's shameful, but what can you do? I could I could if I had made it. I probably wouldn't be able to be doing this show, not from the sitting position at least, in this room. But no matter. Saturday is St. Joseph's Day, and I don't like pastries either. I never liked the St. Joseph's pastries. I just never did. I don't like, in general, I don't like Italian pastries or cakes or anything like that. I don't have a sweet tooth.
You don't?
No, I do not.
Really?
Yeah, no, I don't.
Oh, well. Oh.
No, I mean,
if I were to come over to your house right now and offer you a bowl full of Malamars, you wouldn't take any of them.
No, I don't like it. It's true. I don't like any of that stuff. I don't like anything with cream in it.
Okay.
I do like. I mean, among the sweet things I will enjoy is an apple pie if it's made with a minimal amount of sugar. I just don't like sugar. I just don't like overly sweet things. I don't know how people drink Red Bulls. I mean, that is just it's horrible. The sugar content in there. It's like, I don't know. It's about maybe 100 times more than, it's like drinking Karo syrup. It's horrible.
Yeah.
But no, I don't know how
I can remember Karo syrup.
Yes.
Was that corn syrup, right?
Yeah, corn syrup, Karo syrup, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's sweet. I don't like it. So, anyway, without further delay, we do actually have a blizzard warning up tonight, believe it or not. Whoops.
Well, not here.
Oh, no, no. Oh, no. Heavens to Betsy, no. We have blizzard warnings up for parts of central Kansas. And you see it there, and it's surrounded by winter weather advisories on either side. It's done in Colorado. We had advisories and some winter storm warnings up yesterday, a few remaining advisories up in some counties in New Mexico. We do have a working severe thunderstorm watch in Oklahoma and a number of wind advisories there, and that's the next weather system that is coming out. Meanwhile, it's quiet in the eastern half of the United States from the standpoint of watches and warnings, and except for a couple of winter weather advisories in the Sierra Nevadas, there's not much going on in the western part of the United States, or at least there isn't enough to be up to any kind of advisory or any kind of watch or warning. So on the satellite loop, which for some reason is not looping at the moment. Oh, there it goes. But there it
Loop,
is.
loop.
Yeah, it's looping. We've got low pressure off the Jersey coast. Nice little looking swirl. You know, you look at the upper air, it looks more impressive, Joe, than it actually is. It didn't really produce a ton of rain. It's not as if it's producing a whole lot of wind. The upper feature is a little more defined. The low at the surface is not all that deep, but it's all sliding out to the east. And if you look out to the west, we've got drier air, and that sets us up for nice weather for tomorrow in much of the eastern part of the United States.
Tomorrow will be indeed the pick of the week. And as I said, after tomorrow, it's going to be a case of, even when we have some sunshine next week, we're not going to be seeing the temperatures, the likes of which we're going to see tomorrow. 65 or thereabouts near the sound shore of Westchester. If you're in the Hudson Valley, inland, I could see places like, Montgomery or Newburgh or further north, Poughkeepsie. All of those places may be flirting with 75 degrees. And it's going to be, I think, a while before we get those kind of temperatures back in here after tomorrow, Joe. And again, the weekend, well, it could be a lot better. Could be worse, I guess. But last weekend we were dealing with frozen precip, but this weekend at least we'll have some wet weather to deal with on Saturday, and hopefully a bit of sunshine. Looks like early in the day on Sunday.
We do have a severe weather risk creeping up the East Coast on Saturday, which we will get to momentarily. The pick of the week, by the way, is brought to you by Doesn't Do Nothing Laundry Detergent, approved by Beat. Meanwhile, out in the west, to the west, in the Rockies, you see the next weather system that is pulling eastward, and this is going to be the catalyst for some severe weather. And as we check out the radar, and we'll give this a quick refresh. There's still a little bit of rain left over in parts of New Jersey down into Delaware showing up on the radar, but the bulk of the rain is offshore. Well, that was interesting. The map jumping around. But the bulk of the rain now exiting eastern Long Island. We've got some rain in southeastern New England, just slowly pulling away to the northeast. Just a couple of leftover light sprinkles in central and south Jersey as of 7:45 Eastern time. And as we go out to the west, now this, at least from the standpoint of the structure on the radar, is a little more impressive. And you can see just like a bunch of almost like a spider's arms, spider legs that are rotating around the center of this upper low that is moving east. And we see some severe thunderstorms that have developed in parts of Oklahoma. We've got three warnings that are in play there in central Oklahoma, and also a few showers and thunderstorms coming out of north central Texas, and also into northeastern Texas. And to the northwest, on the northwest fringe of this, we've got a bit of snow. And as far as accumulations are concerned, this is the digital forecast from the Weather Service. In the areas where they have the blizzard warnings up, calling for about 4 to 6 inches. And then the amounts really tail off as you go north and east into southeastern Nebraska and on into parts of northern Missouri, showing up as maybe up to a couple of inches in some places, and maybe a coating to an additional inch or two in parts of Colorado, with the leftover precip there down over into New Mexico. The Storm Prediction Center drum roll, please. The Storm Prediction Center. And I'm just trying to avoid.
That's the best I could do for a drum roll.
Okay, I'm closing windows here, so this way I'm trying to at least avoid any kind of buffering going on tonight. Still trying to figure out why we're getting that, but come on, load the map. There we go. Thank you so much. The Storm Prediction Center has a large area of slight risk from southern Mississippi, just about the whole state of Louisiana, eastern Texas, and into Oklahoma, with marginal risk surrounding it in a narrow band on either side. Now, let's take a look at tomorrow, because we do now have an enhanced risk of severe weather being indicated for I can't. I want this.
I wish I could.
I
wish
want
I
this.
gave you the.
Here
I
we
wish
go. I want this broadband in here so badly. You have no idea. So tomorrow, there's a small area of enhanced risk being indicated in southeastern Mississippi, southernmost Alabama, and the very western part of the Florida Panhandle. Again, small areas of enhanced risk. Slight risk extends from southeast Louisiana and the rest of the Florida Panhandle to about Panama City. And then it goes north, covering all of Alabama, a small portion of southeastern Mississippi, western Georgia, into central Tennessee, western Kentucky, southern Indiana, southern Illinois, southeastern Missouri, the rest of Georgia, most of South Carolina, and eastern North Carolina under marginal risk, as well as eastern Tennessee, eastern Kentucky, southeastern Ohio, southern Indiana, southern Illinois, and southeastern Missouri. Now, for the next day, and this is going to it's going to be interesting to see in the springtime. Warm fronts have a difficult time in and around New York City. Oftentimes they just come to a grinding halt there, and if you're north and east of that, you're in marine air and you're in the 40s and 50s, and if you're south and west of there, you're in the 70s. And I think we're going to have a setup like that on Saturday. So the Storm Prediction Center has a marginal risk up to about Route 195 in New Jersey, and extending down through into eastern Maryland, and then running down through central Virginia, central North Carolina, central South Carolina, central Georgia to the Florida Panhandle. But you see slight risk there in southern Georgia, eastern South Carolina, eastern North Carolina, southeastern Virginia, and the southern part of the Delmarva Peninsula. I could see them maybe nudging, Joe, that marginal risk up just a little bit further to the north when we get there. If the warm front winds up pushing a little bit further to the north, I think there might be justification to move that marginal risk up, maybe to Route 78 to New York City, and covering easternmost Pennsylvania. I don't think the slight risk is going to get moved up much further north than it already is. Maybe the marginal risk does.
Yeah, the triple point is probably going to be in the general vicinity of New York as that cold front approaches from the west. And much of the day, though, will be probably in that light southeast or southerly airflow. And then we'll have to wait for the front to literally bang at our doorstep to the west and maybe nudge that front just far enough north to put at least the New York City area in the warm sector. And that may set the stage for some rumbles of thunder, again, maybe by later in the day on Saturday. Saturday does not look like a very pretty day from start to finish. So
no, Sunday,
if you got anything to
Sunday
do,
will be the better of the 2 weekend days.
Yeah.
No question.
Yeah.
Okay. So here's the Storm Prediction Center's day 4 through 8. So day 4 is Sunday through Monday. Potential is too low, and this is what they had yesterday on the day 5, so that makes sense. But the new day 5, Joe, which is from Monday into Tuesday morning, has that 30% area in eastern Texas there. And that is the equivalent of enhanced risk. So you don't see that too often in the day 4 to 8 forecast. Day 6, that area moves eastward to the central Gulf states, Louisiana, Mississippi, parts of western Alabama, southeastern Arkansas, under a 15%, which is the equivalent of a slight risk. And day 7, which is Wednesday into Thursday of next week, they have a slight risk in the Florida Panhandle, southeastern, southwestern Georgia, and actually moving up to cover a good chunk of central Georgia, just south of Atlanta, and then also into southeastern Alabama. So again, when SPC has it in the long range, that is your cue. For those of you who live in the Gulf states, that is your cue to pay attention.
Pay attention. Anything beyond day 3, as far as I'm concerned, when you get into the experimental 4 to 8 and they have something placed in that time frame, a potential risk, pay attention, because that means that the guys and gals at the Storm Prediction Center are fairly confident that something is going to happen in that particular time frame that are looking at. So, and we've been saying that now for the last few days. And again, I think they finally have. I honestly believe that they must have gotten together and said, it's about time we start, putting things in that 4 to 8 day time frame. Because more often than not, in the last 2-3 years, you get to the 4 to 8, predictability too low, probability too low, this too low, that too low. I think they're finally going to start sticking their necks out more and more in the
Well,
coming weeks and months,
yeah,
especially as we get into the spring and the summer.
I just think that there are standout shortwaves next week that are involved. I mean, if you could look at the models, they're all of them show it, so it's not a stretch. I don't know. I don't think they're being overzealous here in putting it. I think it's a genuine reason why it's there and not out of overzealousness. But you know what? If we go into a week where things are not as clear to you and me, and you know how they watch us religiously, they we'll see if they wind up being a little more aggressive in their long range. Maybe you're right. I don't think they are doing that, but we'll see. Rainfall wise from WPC, the Weather Prediction Center, still showing ample amounts of 2.5 to 4 inches being indicated in some places in the lower Mississippi Valley and through some of the Gulf states into Alabama and parts of Georgia, into western and central Tennessee, up into the Ohio Valley, the western part of the Ohio Valley. So a fairly wet 7-day period coming up. Here in the east, between this is now starts at 8 o'clock tonight. I forgot we are on saving time now. So from 8 o'clock tonight. So this is really all with the weather system approaching for the weekend and also maybe for the middle part of next week. We're seeing liquid precip amounts on the order of about an inch to an inch and a quarter in total from Maine all the way down into northern Florida. Not too, there's less out in the west, the Pacific Northwest, a little more robust there with some rainfall, but nothing too crazy, just on the order of maybe a half an inch in some places in Northern California to as much as a couple of inches in northwestern California to maybe a couple of inches up in western Washington. So let's move on to the GFS here and take a look at what kind of adventures this is going to be taking us. And again, tomorrow is not an issue. Just waiting for these maps to load, folks. Here they go. So tomorrow is not an issue. Obviously, the low pulls out. Now, you can see the low coming out of the southern plains there. It's fairly wrapped up in eastern Kansas. There's not a whole lot of snow on the northwest side. So that just, that sort of tells you how lacking we are of cold air, because this time of year, you would tend to see some bigger snows in the upper Midwest, maybe the upper Mississippi Valley, and perhaps in the central and northern plains. So this one is not really doing that. There's a smaller area of some snow, but it's no big deal. The lows in St. Louis Friday night, and then by Saturday morning, the warm front's just kind of laying there right along. I mean, if I had to draw it, I guess we could do it like this. But here's your cold front's running this way, and there's just a little bit of a weak warm front there running across central New Jersey. So this is the zone for severe weather that is being indicated by the Storm Prediction Center, and it makes sense because that's where the warm sector is. And again, does it push up a little bit further to the north? Maybe they nudge that marginal risk up a little more. But as you said, Joe, it's not going to be a pretty day. If it's not when it's not raining, it'll just be cloudy, and then that goes out. The upper trough moves through, maybe a shower on Sunday, but a little bit more in upstate New York and New England, but not that much more. And next week starts off Monday looks dry. I don't know what that is. Monday night into Tuesday, there's a little, some kind of renegade area of snow and rain, a narrow band there that comes across Michigan and into New York State and over southern New England. I don't know what that is, if that's even real. Cold high coming down on Tuesday. You can see the next low. This is a very vigorous low that's coming out for next Tuesday. I'm going to go to the U.S. map because I think there might be snow implications here for the Rockies. Let's take a look. Let's take a look. Anything exciting going on
And
in
as
the
we're
chat board?
well, I was going to say that as we check the chat board, I do have a bit of an apology to
Oh,
Robert Russo. Last night, Robert Russo hit super chats, and I don't think we mentioned that he did last night, and he's just done it again. So
oh, Robert.
thank you, Robert Russo.
Yeah, I didn't see anything on my board, so sorry we missed you. We don't like to miss people when they hit super chat. And here comes that low for next week. It's a pretty vigorous low, Joe, that drops down into Texas. It actually produces some heavy snow in eastern Colorado and into parts of western Nebraska. It's a fairly wrapped up system, and I could see why SPC has already got the enhanced risk up with that. And then that low is just going to sort of translate its way eastward into the Ohio Valley. Uh, Probably there's a low center that goes up to over Lake Erie. So I don't know, maybe some frozen or freezing precipitation possible on Wednesday in upstate New York and in northern New England, perhaps as that low goes west of the Appalachians, and then you can see there's an actual little secondary low that forms there off the Jersey coast and moves out. But of course, that's going to be rain for everybody else. And then after that, it turns drier. Let's see if there's any surprise snowstorms on the GFS and on today's run, on this run.
Well, if it showed up on the GFS, would it really be a surprise?
No, and that's
if it doesn't show up on the GFS.
That, when it's not there and the upper air pattern looks somewhat interesting, that's when you have to pay attention. When it shows you a wrapped up cyclone in the box, that's when not to pay attention. And here we have, as we go through now, I mean, I don't see anything here, at least from the standpoint of the surface. There's a fairly wrapped up low around day 11. There's a 979 low. Is that a 79? Yeah, I think it is. Up in northern Wisconsin that weakens as it moves eastward and then heads up into eastern Canada. And that's followed by another wrapped up low right behind it. That by the time we get to the end of the period, so this falls into the who knows category. But I want to let's look at Saturday from the standpoint of some thunderstorms. The one thing that caught my eye, Joe, I was looking at the 700 millibar. That's not a half bad looking trough at 700 millibar that's that approaching on Saturday, and there's a lot of jet streaks there. I'm thinking maybe that that's probably where you could see, if you wind up seeing some severe weather out of it, it's going to be a wind issue. There might be some strong wind gusts. I don't think they're going to be tornadoes or anything like that. But there's enough there that at least where they have the area of risk, it would not shock this would not shock me at all if we wind up seeing severe weather extending up maybe up into southern New Jersey. And you can see on this 700 millibar loop, as the trough approaches, you got all these little jet streaks that are running through. Sometimes that those winds mix down to the surface with the thunderstorm activity, and then the second one that comes out. And you'll see it there. There's a wrapped up upper low. It's a closed low in Oklahoma. That's a pretty well-defined upper low. So again, I could see the justification for why they went for an enhanced risk on Monday into Tuesday for that part of Texas, because that's a pretty strong upper low that's going to be moving through there.
Yep, and as I said at the onset, enjoy tomorrow because. You said, Joe, a lot of things are going to be happening after that through the weekend and right on into next week. So to have a day where you have sunshine and 60s and 70s and lovely weather, that's tomorrow. And that may not happen again for a while because as we look ahead to next week, as you just mentioned, there are a lot of things that are going to be taking place. It's going to be kind of as you also mentioned, kind of a noisy type of weather pattern. So I don't know what to tell you. It's leads. It's just, it's a Friday. It's not one of the weekend days, and that kind of gets your goat, I think, sometimes. And you see how beautiful it is on Friday, with the realization that when you wake up on Saturday, there's nothing out there but, if you pardon the expression, dreck.
Yeah. Yeah, that pretty much sums it up. We're in a fun, you know what? We're in a funny pattern at a funny time of year because the
Goodbye.
the the atmosphere is making its transition from winter to spring, and sometimes that transition can be very turbulent. I was seeing Facebook memories coming up about storms in the 2018 and 2017 and so on. And some years this can be a really busy time of year. And then there are years, at least in the East, this year it looks like the seems to be more to our west in the plains and across the Gulf states from the standpoint of severe weather because we've been seeing multiple outbreaks going on, and March is one of the first of the severe weather months. So I don't know. I guess from the standpoint of us doing weather here, it's a little frustrating because of the fact that it's hard when there's not much to discuss. But sometimes that happens, and we're for the month of March, this has not been living up to March's reputation for being a difficult month so far.
Now, if you do I have sharing capabilities or?
One moment, please. La 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 la. Go for it. It's
All
yours.
righty.
You're on the air.
Yes. So I want to show all of you Climate Prediction Center. This will get you salivating, all of you snow lovers. They have drawn up a slight risk of heavy snow right here, just a stone's throw to the north of where I live in the Hudson Valley, and that includes Tim Veltman, and that includes the Adirondacks and central and northern New England. There is the slight possibility on the 25th. When is the 25th? The 25th is a week from
Tomorrow.
a week from tomorrow?
Yeah.
No. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. What am I looking at? I'm like, a week from tomorrow.
Right.
So if you want to believe this, a week from tomorrow, there may be some snow to contend with that disturbance that'll be moving on through. It looks like, and I mean, it looked like to me, Joe, that we were looking for, at least in our neck of the woods, more rain than anything else. But maybe it'll just be, well, the atmosphere may be just enough cold air, a modest cold air mass to help produce the flaky weather that CPC is indicating for, again, a week from tomorrow. We'll see if they hold to that or whether or not that area shrinks. It probably, this time of the year, I think it would be more like shrinkage as opposed to expanding across. I'll be very surprised if a week from tomorrow we're talking about snow here in the immediate New York City area. But, upstate, if you go far enough north, you just might have your maybe last big thrill of the season. We'll see how that all pans out.
All right. So let's go to let's do Briller Jeopardy. And tonight, Joe, the category is extremes in Caribou, Maine. Extremes in Caribou, Maine. I actually know somebody that's going up to Caribou this weekend to Fort Kent, Maine, to go snowmobiling.
Fort Kent.
Yes.
One of my favorite towns.
Have you been there?
Never been there, but when I started my career in broadcast meteorology, I was doing mostly small and medium-sized radio markets. And one of the radio markets I was doing was WSJR and WLVC in Madawaska, Fort Kent, Maine. And Joe, we used to give a lot of people think of, when you think of growing potatoes, you think of Idaho, but they're also heavy into growing potatoes up in Maine. We used to have to give a potato growing index with our weather forecast every day. Don't ask me how we calculated it. That was so many years ago. But I thought it was interesting. Funny that I was doing. I was in New York and Queens actually, and here I am doing the weather on a daily basis on a couple of radio stations. One of them was what we call a one lung station. I forget if it was the Fort Kent or the Madawaska station, 250 watts of power. It went out about 12 blocks. And the other one was 500 watts. And of course, they were both daytime radio stations. So they went off at the moment when the sun went down. But that was, my goodness, that was late 70s, early 80s, 40 years ago. Wow.
Time flies. Remember, the days sometimes can feel like an eternity, and the years just fly by. That's usually That's usually how it works. All right, let's do a little Briller Jeopardy here. With Caribou, Maine, what was the highest temperature ever recorded in Caribou?
They could get up, as far as north as they are. I think they can get up quite high. I'm going to say 97 Fahrenheit.
96 was the actual one, so you got it within one. That's very good. What was the lowest temperature? Wow. What was the lowest temperature ever recorded in Caribou?
I could remember quite a few very, very cold mornings when I was doing the weather for them all those years ago. I will say, minus 27.
Oh God, no, minus 41.
Minus 41.
Minus 41.
You realize, of course, that when you get to minus 40 on Fahrenheit, it's the exact same thing in Celsius.
That's correct.
Holy mackerel.
Warmest overnight low?
Oh, well, it's not like in New York where if it got to 97 or 96, it might hold near 80. They're wide open, so they would radiate some. I will say 65.
71.
Wow.
71. Earliest measurable snowfall in Caribou?
Well, the earliest measurable snowfall in New York came in, I think, late October, like October 23rd or 25th or something. So up there, what could they have possibly? I'll say September. Yes, you heard right. September. I'll say September 25th.
September 29th. Close. Latest measurable snowfall.
Latest measurable snowfall in New York is something like April 23rd. So I will say for Caribou, I will say, I'll say May 20th.
Close. May 25th. That's probably right around Memorial Day. Greatest yearly snowfall.
God. How about 100? I'll say 120 inches.
176.9. And here's your.
How do they do that?
Well, it's northern Maine.
176.
176.
Well, I mean, I understand that, but I mean, like 170. But you know what? It wasn't too many years ago that Boston got to 102 inches. Remember that?
Yep.
So yeah, then that would make some sense. Even though if I had thought about that a few moments ago, I still wouldn't have said 170. So I would probably have said 140, 150 for kind of 176 inches. Wow.
And the bonus question is, what is the Caribou record for most consecutive days with measurable snow, 0.1 or greater? The record for the most consecutive days with measurable snow.
You know, it go like 4 months like that. I'll pick a high number. 100. I'll say 134.
No, it's not that high, Joe. It's way divide that by 10.
Wait a minute. You said most consecutive days with measurable snow on the ground, right?
No. What is Caribou's record for most consecutive days with measurable snow? Not on necessarily, in other words, measurable snow recorded.
Oh, it's not on the ground, but recorded falling. Oh, okay. Right. But you just gave it away. I said like what, 13?
It's 13.
13 days in a row? Yeah. No, I thought what you meant was, how much snow on the ground, measurables, each day, from previous storms or whatever. And I'm sure that is the case. I'm sure that they've had winters where they've had like 4 months where they have been able to measure some amount of snow on the ground. But yeah, that's quite I've never been that far. I've never been I've been farther north than that, but I've never been up to northern Maine. I've been to Bar Harbor and that part of Maine, but I've never been to northern Maine. And by the way, in the Longfellow Mountains, which is right in the middle of Maine, there's hardly anybody who lives in that area. It's like if you look at a map of the northeastern United States at night, all the cities that light everything up, this way and that
Right.
way or whatever like that, and you look in the middle of Maine, there is nothing there. There are no lights. There's nothing. So that's
Gr-
maybe going to be the last,
Great for
the last
stargazing.
great for stargazing. But I mean, like when they start running out of room with all the big cities in the Northeast, I'll say, all right, let's move up to Maine. Let's start knocking down trees up in the Longfellow Mountains and start building homes up there. What was the name of the realtor in Long Island? DeMattis, right? The DeMattis company
Yes.
that's building every which way on Long Island. Used to be you go out to eastern Long Island, there were potato fields.
Right. Yeah.
Now it's like hotels and you know all kinds of buildings out there. The great rural communities of eastern Long Island are all but gone now. I think DeMattis was the one. They came up with the idea of having a Christmas tree even bigger and brighter than the one at Rockefeller Center. Right? That's
Right.
so you'll have these kind of not necessarily DeMattis, but you're going to have once they get an idea, they'll look up there and he said, that's a nice large area, a large piece of real estate that we could really develop, and they'll go into northern Maine or central Maine, and that'll be it. So,
Yes. So I just want to bring up this subject here because I happened to stumble over it on Facebook. It's kind of interesting to me. So up at in this is a column in the Buffalo News written by Alan Pergament, and he writes a piece about WIVB's chief meteorologist there, Todd Santos, joins emerging trend of broadcasters looking for work-life balance. So apparently he's stepping away because he wants to spend more time with his wife and his three kids. And I was reading the story where basically Mr. Santos says that uh, he'd see his kids go off to school on Monday morning, and then he wouldn't see them again until Saturday because he's working all during the week and he's working the night, the evening shows, and 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 so on. But what was it was and by the way, I applaud you for doing this. Okay, just so you know. But apparently this is a trend where a lot of broadcast people, but particularly weather people, are just kind of telling management, you know what, this is too much for me, and uh, you know, I can't do all this because they point out the fact that it's it's obviously not just the shows, but then you're doing multiple shows and you're on multiple times, and each one of those shows have to be different, and you have to prepare all that stuff because more often than not, in the smaller markets, I don't know what the case is where he is, but in the smaller markets, you don't necessarily have a producer to help you put stuff together. And then you have to do
right.
Facebook, and then you have to do Twitter, and then you have to do,
Ah, yes.
and on and on and on it goes. And they also speak to the fact that a lot of stations, with the people that they hire, their annual their annual increases are usually no more than 1 or 2%.
Right.
So why is this a shock? I mean, but I just wanted to say that when I was when my kids were small, I was working the morning shift at News 12, so I was home every afternoon. And actually, I used to get home like at 11 o'clock, 10, 11 o'clock in the morning because we didn't even have a noon show for a long time. When we had a noon
Right.
show, I was getting home at like 1:30, but I was still home every afternoon and evening when my kids came home from school, so I got to see them a lot when they were small. I spent a lot of time with my children. So, for those of you who, have to have that dilemma where you're having to choose between your job and your kids, choose your kids because you know what? You're gonna remember those moments with your children when the years go by, and they go by very quickly. You're gonna remember your workplace moments, but you're not gonna remember them they're not going to remember as much as you think. You may wind up remembering more the times that they made your life a living hell uh, than uh, than some of the better times. But I just thought it was a very interesting article because this apparently is a problem for TV stations with news operations, Joe, trying to keep staff because they're working them to death and they're paying them crap. Except for the big stars in a given market, everybody else is getting paid, getting paid crap.
Yeah, that the last 2 years at News 12, as the old ownership began the process of passing it to the new ownership, I suddenly found myself doing a heck of a lot, and especially when we had severe weather events. And yeah, we did not have the ability of having a producer. I don't have to tell that to you, Joe. I mean, I remember that doing it. But the thing was that when I was filling in for you at Long Island, I mean, there was a certain amount of things that you had to do, but you had enough time to do them. And toward the final couple of years at News 12 Westchester, for me, I mean, I was saying, "What the heck are you doing?" I mean, I would come in. My time at News 12 Westchester started officially at 1:30 in the afternoon. It ended at 10:30. 1:30 in the afternoon, and the first show that I had to do was at 2 o'clock. And I said to my boss, I said, "What the heck is this all about? You expect me to put together a show in just a half an hour, a weathercast in just a half an hour?" What I had to do, and what I used to do, is before I left each night, I used to actually set up next day's show in anticipation of what we were going to be talking about. So this way, at least when I came in, I had something, and I could add a couple of other things and get away with doing that or
Right.
whatever. Um,
But still,
it was just crazy.
it's still as the tech. What actually happened was, in terms of a time, if you look at a timeline, the technology came along that made our lives as weather people easier. But then shortly after that, when the bosses realized how much easier our lives were, they made them more difficult by saying, "Well, we're
Exactly.
adding this, we're adding that. You're going to do this, you're going to do that." And of course, when we got into um, 2010 and afterward, when social media became the rage, the first thing we bought ourselves a little bit of time because management generally rejected all that stuff. It was like, oh, we're television, we don't do internet, we don't do, and even though a number of us were smart enough to say, no, you need to be here because that's where everybody else is and that's where everybody else is going, and ultimately they had to follow. They were dragged kicking and screaming, which is what happens when you work for behemoths who, they're established entities. They've grown to where they don't really are interested in growing anymore, and then they get their lunch. They get eaten away by the competition, and they've been reduced to very small they're very small shells of their former selves. So they're always playing catch up with this sort of stuff. But yeah, I mean, we were basically worked to death. And you had to do a live broadcast, and then you had to do the Facebook cast, and then you had to post on, they wanted something for the website, you had to do that, blah 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 blah. I mean, I just got to a point. It's just like, you know what? I can only do the best I can. So you get it when you get it. It's not, they only got two hands. Can't be in 210 places at the same time. And, and
And the only reason why I'm on Facebook is that it was literally forced upon me. I did not want to go on Facebook. This is back in 2010, and they basically said, "You're going on Facebook. You're an anchor here. All of our anchors have Facebook accounts, and by the way, you have to post at least 5 posts each day on Facebook. Oh, and incidentally, you're also going to have to do something on Twitter." And all of a sudden, they had us doing that in addition to all of our regular stuff, in addition to the fact that we originally just had 2 shows. We had a 5 o'clock show and a 10 o'clock show. Then they increased it. They had a 4:30 Yonkers show, a 5 o'clock Hudson Valley show, a 6 o'clock show for. We had a 5 o'clock show for Westchester County, a 6 o'clock show for the Hudson Valley. Then they added a 7 o'clock show, and then the addition, they had the 10 o'clock show, and then we had to do all kinds of stuff. And it was it was crazy.
God
It was
forbid, God
absolutely
forbid if you had,
crazy.
I mean, did they at least give you enough time to go to the bathroom? I mean, for God's
Yeah,
sake.
there was just getting to the point where you couldn't
Well,
when you couldn't do that. And
and
we had one of our reporters, and one of our reporters actually had a backbone, actually had a spine. He was a great reporter. Let me stress this: he was an excellent reporter, provided excellent packages, news packages on the air. But they called him in, and they said, you're not doing anything on Twitter. You're not doing anything on Facebook. You're not posting. And the reporter said, on top of everything else that I'm doing, he said, you want me to do that as well? I said, it's impossible. I can't do that. He said, well, you got to. And they gave him several warnings. And finally, one day, they called him in and they said, goodbye. And he said, he was like stunned. He couldn't believe it. But they said, you didn't do what we told you to do. You have to do this. You have to. And he said, I told you, I'm trying to get the best out of my packages, and I don't have the time to do all this other he called it nonsense. And he was gone. He wasn't somebody who was a troublemaker. He was not somebody who was constantly dealing with human resources or was at one time suspended. He was a top-notch, excellent reporter. But he wasn't doing everything that was being told that he had to do as part of the job. And he wasn't getting an increase in salary. This was all, as was the case with all of us. They were dumping things on us. They were making us work even harder, longer. And shall you say, did you have time to go to the bathroom? Just barely. In some cases on a very busy weather day. So that was the story as far as the final couple of years at News 12 for me. And I heard it's gotten even worse.
Oh, I'm sure.
Since Altice took over, and that's why somebody like you or me, they look at us and they say, "Oh, well, they're old. They can't do it. We'll give these to young people." But the young people in their 20s and 30s, the young people, I call them that, they're having problems because they're being given double and triple and quadruple stuff to do, more stuff. You and I both know Rich Von Olin, who runs the traffic and weather channel over at News 12. And when I was thinking about maybe coming back there after I was let go from FiOS, and he told me in an email, he said, "Joe, you wouldn't want to be here. You would not want to be here. It's not like interesting. He said, it's not like the days of Norm Dvoskin." He used Norm as an example where Norm would just make up a couple of bad puns and he'd do a show at 5 and do it. He said, it's not like those days. He said, in fact, literally, the heavy workload forced Norm to finally say, after all these years, I'm out, I'm done. And that also was the same thing with our other good friend, Bill Corbell. He said, that's it. I can't. I love doing this work, but they push the limit. So
it's hard.
You're right.
It's hard.
It is hard.
And at least and then with the young people, of course, they can't pay it. The other thing I would just add to that, by the way, I saw somebody commenting asking about it being a quote glamorous business. It's the furthest thing from being glamorous. Okay, there is nothing glamorous about doing television news. If anything, it's very mechanical. It's there's not. We don't just go. We don't fly in with our arms waving and say, "Okay, I'm here," and sit in our thrones and move the camera and bring me my 41-degree water melted from the glaciers of Greenland. I want my molecules flown in from the Sahara, my water molecules flown in from the Sahara and fused together in front of me. No, it is not glamorous, okay, at all. Especially when it's busy and there's big news or big weather and you're working 16-hour days and you're not getting comp time for it, you're not getting overtime for it unless you're in a union shop. But
News 12 was not a union shop.
No. And by the way,
News 12 was not union.
Going back to what you said with Facebook and Twitter, all these reporters and weather people, they're building these Facebook accounts and these Twitter accounts with all these followers, and they're building it on their sweat, on their personal sweat, okay, on their own personal efforts. And when they leave the stations, those Facebook accounts are destroyed. They don't own those accounts. And that was one thing that I insisted on when I was working through the 2010, 2019 timeframe. My Facebook is my Facebook, okay? and you don't have access to it, and you're not getting access to it in terms of management. You want to have your own separate thing, that's fine, but you're not getting mine, and you're not getting the keys to my Facebook page either. You're not getting making you an admin or anything like that. That's mine, and that's one thing I've told a number of people, number of young people in the past few years I've had conversations with regards to career advice. I said the one thing you better do when you walk in is make sure that your Facebook page and your Twitter page or any other social media page that you have uh, is there's an understanding with management that those pages are yours and they and you come in with them and you're going to leave with them. Okay, and
Right.
that's very important. That's almost as important as how much money you're going to make, because if you're leaving the station and you're taking a page that you've built to, tens of thousands or maybe even hundreds of thousands of followers, and if you're lucky enough to get a job in the same market, you're taking that audience with you. Okay, so
Right.
that gives you that's something of value for you to have. But yeah, every time I read stories like that, I'm glad we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't really matter. I think even if you are, I mean, in my particular standpoint, I went to any number of the local TV stations in the New York area, and I pointed out to them. I said, you hire me, even as a part timer or even as a stringer, an occasional fill in, and I can guarantee you that a lot of people, I'll bring a whole audience from the Hudson Valley with me, and I had Westchester Magazine and other proofs to back me up on that, and it was like sticking a computer card into a computer, and the computer is reading this information and saying, but this does not compute.
Yeah.
He is over the 25 to 54 favored demographic. It does not make any sense that he has all of these followers, so we cannot hire him. And that's basically what it is with me. And I'm getting, if any of you are watching who go on my Facebook page, I'm getting a little tired of you people making a comment. Joe, I wish you were back on News 12. Joe, I miss you at News 12. Joe, can't you go back to No, I'm not going back to News 12 because they don't want me. They never wanted me after I left. They got very upset when I left because I went to their rival, their competition. So I'm not going back to News 12. And as far as other TV stations, why don't you send them an email and say, it'd be really good if you hired Joe Ray. In fact, it'd really be good if you hired Joe Rayo and Joe Chiaffi. If you had two weathercasters on your TV station,
No,
which nobody has, by the way.
no, it would be
Nobody.
better.
But Joe, if you could use it, but if you could do it remotely.
Yeah.
If we could do this, if we could do what we do every night here at Joe and Joe, I mean, that would make it unique. That would be a thinking outside of the box type idea,
Right,
because no one else in the TV would be doing it.
Well,
And I swear to you, if people would gravitate to that, to whatever TV channel would do something like that, but they're not going to do that.
no,
They're
of
not going to
course
do
not.
that. No.
And then of
No.
course, and then of course, if they did that, there would be constraints that would be put on us in terms of how long will the show be, and how what are we what we can do, what they don't want us to do, and all this. I'm not giving up.
Right.
I am not giving up creative control.
Yes.
I'm just not. I'm just not. Not that we have that problem. I really wish we kind of had that problem. I'd love to have a conversation with somebody in management from a television station saying, wanting to do something like this and bringing up the show. And yeah, it's all fine and dandy, but you know what? I ain't leaving my mountain here in Georgia.
Besides, they don't listen. Besides, more often than not, they never listen to us anyway. And I can tell you, I will not mention the person, obviously, but I mean, there was a time we'd go into an editorial meeting, and we had a bunch of severe thunderstorms that were looming to our west, and you say at the meeting to the news director or the person in charge, "Hey, there are severe weather options coming our way, and that we could go under a watch, or we could go under a warning, and there could be damaging winds or whatever." And when you do your whole spiel, that person just like looking down saying, "All right, thank you very much." And they move on to something more important, like crime or whatever. Then no more than an hour and a half later, here comes a monster thunderstorm, heavy rain, hurricane-like winds, hail. Everybody's like out of the. It even sets off the alarm in the building. Everybody comes running outside underneath the awning or whatever. We're out there doing Joe and Joe on our phones, and then all of a sudden, I get a phone call from the person in charge who I just told an hour and a half ago this was going to happen. Why didn't anybody tell me about this? I want to know why. You're my meteorologist. I can't believe that you didn't know. And all you do, if I were just getting into the business, if I were just starting, or even maybe 10 years ago, I would have made the attempt to just argue with this person. But you know what?
Right.
I knew I was, near the end of my career, and I just let that person blow off steam.
You know what pissed me off? You know what pissed me off about that was the fact that, because I know exactly which event you're talking about, because I'm reliving it right now in my brain. What really angered me about that was the fact that we were covering we were basically working 3 channels all at the same time, and
Right.
they all had severe, they all had severe weather going on, if I recall correctly, at the same time, which is a
Right.
little unusual. So I had enough to do. You were told in the meeting this was going to happen. What did you think I was going to be able to tell you ahead of time? Yeah, we have a severe thunderstorm warning. And you know what? We had a severe thunderstorm. And you know what? Severe thunderstorms have lightning and very loud thunder and lightning bolts, and sometimes you could actually have lightning strikes and see them happening from where you are. I don't know what she thought we were going to tell her more. Plus, we were working. If I have to spend the time, and it's only maybe 60 or 90 seconds, but as you recall, you had to walk down a hallway to go to another part of the building in order to gain access to this person. So if I'm spending time walking down a hallway to go down there and tell you, oh, we're having a severe thunderstorm, and then I have to walk all the way back, their response would be, well, how come you're not on the air talking about this? Well, because I'm supposed to tell you about this, so I'm walking down to tell you. You're not answering your phone, so that whole thing was just one of the most. That was just ridiculous. It was just absolutely
Also,
ridiculous.
the other thing that was ridiculous was that most television stations have a situation where if the National Weather Service issues a warning, it automatically goes into the computer system and appears as a crawl on your television screen. Where we were in our final days on television, the last place that we were working together, they didn't have that. And so we would physically have to see the warning come up on our screens, sit there, type the warning up, and then before it had a chance to go on the air, we had to send it to an executive producer or an assistant news director or somebody all the way on the other side of the building for them to look at, to approve it, and then send it back to us so that we can send it over to the. And by the time this whole rigmarole was done and finished, it was already like 20 minutes after the darn thing was issued, and already there were many places in our viewing area that were getting hit hard, and they were never had a chance to get the warning from us because we were too busy typing it out, sending it there, having it come back to us, retyping, sending it to the control room or whatever. It was ridiculous. And for all the lack of trying to save a few bucks in not getting the automated system that all the other stations had that would allow that to just automatically, boom, go on the screen as soon as it was issued by the National Weather Service. And you would send out a tornado warning to somebody, to the executive producer in the newsroom, and you'd sit there and you're waiting for the phone call or the email back saying, "All right, I've approved this."
And by that time, the warning had expired.
No, but you'd call him up on the phone. Did you get the warning? Did you look? And you say, "Oh, you sent me something," because that guy in the newsroom was busy doing his own stuff. It's
right, and I could see from the other side. I was supposed to send it to the executive producer, and he's busy doing his, what he's doing. So I can't really blame him if he doesn't get it back to me immediately. So it just was. It was. They were so afraid of doing anything, giving anybody any what's the word I'm looking for? Just kind of designating responsibility to somebody and saying, okay, you know what, we'll trust you on what you write. But I've been doing this for 40
Right.
years. I think I know how to write a
Right.
warning. And yeah, okay,
Right.
sometimes I do make a mistake grammatically, or I forget a period or a comma, or I didn't word something right. Okay, but you know what? I can like go over it and proofread it myself, or have you proofread it and just put it on. But they created this whole bureaucracy because they were afraid of the little guy upstairs who was going to come down and scream at them off the top of their lungs,
Right.
and or worse. You know what? It's over with, and I don't care. But I do remember just one night. I remember talking with Brian Fitzgerald about this. I love Brian. I really do. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have gotten a job at FiOS in the first place. But so you were off, and we had severe weather coming, and I was concerned because said because it looked like it could be a pretty widespread event where there was the possibility that we could have warnings going on in multiple zones. Well, I was well, that never happens, and you know what? Most times it doesn't, but that night it did, and I had
It
I
did.
had warnings, I had warnings and tornado warnings in every zone at the same time. And
Right.
I just remember going absolutely crazy because I couldn't stay ahead of it. And I right away I said, you know what? I can only do the best I can. So if somebody complains, and thankfully nobody did, but if somebody complains, I'm just going to say, you know what? I'm one person handling three zones. I had to make a choice. So I did New Jersey, I gave them priority over Hudson Valley, or I gave them priority over Long Island, or whatever it was. But it was just awful because I mean, I literally went from one tornado in one zone to one tornado in another zone, and you can't do that. You can't give three. Look, when the weather is fine, it's easy. Okay, you bang them out, they're done, and there's no problem. But when there's weather going on, you got to have other people helping you, and they just didn't see it that way. So
No, they
anyhow,
didn't. They
yeah.
didn't. Tom Contino asked Joe Ray, is there any way Channel 61 can go back to weather and traffic reports 24/7? Can Rich Von Olin make the change back to the old way? No, Rich Von Olin has no control over that. Rich is just a very tiny cog in a gigantic wheel, which sometimes, more often than not, I think, actually rolls over him. He has to say yes to whatever the corporate geniuses that run that. And what is particularly annoying to me is that Channel 61 got on its feet and started, quite frankly, because I spent long hours with the powers that be, the original powers that be at Cablevision. And if I'll tell you how annoying this was, once I was getting ready to go to the company Christmas party. The company Christmas party, Joe, was a Friday afternoon. I was supposed to go and meet my wife, who was already at the party with my kids. And I was hauled into the news director's office. One of them was our dear friend Norm, which you remember from News 12 Long Island, and a couple of the other. And that they're asking me how they can improve on the 7-day outlook, to highlight certain things on the 7-day for Channel 61. And then they assigned me. Anyway, well, I understand where you're at, but can you do it when you come in on Monday or whatever? I had to do like various examples of the thing that they wanted to do on Channel 61. Now, to give them credit, they wanted Channel 61 to be 2 minutes of traffic, 2 minutes of weather, boom, ba boom, ba boom, ba boom, ba boom, 24/7, like Tom Contino is asking now. And I spend many long hours, not so much on News 12, but on News 12 traffic and weather, because I was always the guy who was the one to do the example that might eventually end up going on the air, doing numerous tapings and this and with the graphics and whatever. And now what Tom obviously is referring to is the fact that when you turn on Channel 61 now, that you more often than not get like 5 minutes of commercials, or you're actually getting News 12 headlines. It's not 24/7 traffic and weather anymore. And between midnight and 6 o'clock in the morning, that channel is not traffic and weather. That channel is infomercials. So the people at Altice are making the money, making the moolah for 6 hours. And they don't care if there's a tornado warning in your area at 2 o'clock in the morning and you turn on to see what the radars like, as I've done on more than one occasion, out of habit. Instead, I'm watching Chef Tony chopping up a roast beef or whatever at 2 o'clock, and I don't want to look at Chef Tony. I don't want to find out about how I can get better, how I can hang my stuff up using alien tape or whatever. I mean, this is crazy, but that's the way things are now on Channel 61. So, Tom, if you're hoping about a return to the old days, forget it, because the only thing they're interested in now is money, money, money. And that's it. I'm sorry to say. So,
Yep.
How did we get started on this, Joe?
Oh, because I brought up the article from the Buffalo weather guy.
Oh yeah,
Making the choice to step back from his chief meteorologist
and I understand
job.
what he's doing, and I understand because I never, my wife, thank God. I mean, like she was home. She did not go to work. We did not send the kids to daycare. When they came home, she was there. And I give a lot of credit to the way the kids were brought up and why the kids are what they are today, more to my wife than to me, because I wasn't there most of the time during the week. She had to take care of the kids. I was being a TV star. I came home at night. If I wanted to see my kids, I'd have to creep into their bedroom and give them a kiss on the head because they were already asleep and getting ready to go to school the next day or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the drawbacks. And by the way, my cohort at News 12, Bryson Van Eck, was the morning meteorologist at News 12. He did mornings, I did evenings. When I said I was leaving to go to FiOS 1, they turned around to Bryson and said, Bryson, we would like you now to take over Joe Rayo's shift and be the evening meteorologist. And he said no. He wanted to continue doing the mornings. Why? Because he knew that by doing the mornings, when he came home at 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, he got a chance to be with his kids.
Right.
He got a chance to interact with his wife and his family, whatever. I did not have that ability to do that over a span of 21 years. So from that vantage point, from what that Buffalo meteorologist is doing now, I understand completely. I understand totally where he is at, because there were times I was very depressed because I knew that I sometimes I didn't see my kids for days. I'd have to wait till the weekend to see them. So
yep.
It's not a glamorous to be on television. There's some interesting and nice points about it, but it's not glamorous. Let's put it that way.
Nope. So all the more power to you, Todd Santos. You made the right choice, and you won't regret it. Anthony wants to know if that's my Christmas tree, and the answer is yes. Rich Rothmans, where is he? He works at the Rich Rothmansky, who worked at WCBS News Radio 88, WCBS, New York, for a year and a half, and they let him go there too. And it's the same trend in radio. It's
right.
Try to get it down to where you're just basically one person, and you're supposed to do 5,000 different things, and it just can't be done. Okay, you know what?
Helen Bertona, she says, I remember a really bad snowstorm and Joe R was outside covering it, and it was late at night and it was like a blizzard. Yeah, that's the other fun part about being a TV weathercaster. Sometimes the executive producer suddenly gets it in his mind, hey, you know what we ought to do? We ought to send the weather guy outside in this frigid weather. And I would tell them, but if I'm outside, I can't look at the latest information and tell everybody the latest foos and tell them what's going to happen in the next day. And the answer would be, nah, I'd rather see you freeze your face off. And there was more times I could count that I was outside with the camera and the snow coming down or the winds blowing, the chill factor 20 below zero. And I'm standing there saying, well, I'm out here and it's cold and it's snowy. What else do you want to know? That was the other side of it. So thanks, Helen, for mentioning that, because I did more of my share of live hits outside as opposed to being inside. I mean, I always thought that was the reporter who was supposed to do that, but sometimes it got into somebody's head saying, hey, I'd like to see the weather guy out there instead. And there you go.
Yep. Okay, enough. Let's say good night. And thanks everybody for being here and putting up with us in our little rant session here at the end of another week because Joe and I will be off tomorrow and Saturday, and we'll be back Sunday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. So everybody have a great Friday and a happy St. Joseph's Day and a good weekend.
Yes.
We'll see you Sunday morning at 11 a.m. Good night, everybody.